What is a conspiracy theory whenever certain things turn out to be true?
I think that using your experience as a sexual assault survivor to give weight to your opinion against other women is quite frankly disgusting. But then again, you've just said that you've been sexually assaulted. Where's the evidence? Why are you only bringing it up now? Why should we believe you were sexually assaulted but not other women? Especially when you didn't report it to the police either.
Is it a conspiracy theory still, or is it just truth? And then nobody wants to admit the fact that they were wrong about it being a conspiracy theory.
Anybody that's been a victim of sexual abuse needs justice. He never did anything like that with me. Everything was more than consensual, I promise.
A combination of conspiracy theories and a mistrust of news have brought Russell Brand more than 6 million subscribers to his YouTube channel.
That's just a thought process that came into my head whenever this one starts talking.
So he champions conspiracy theories. He's anti-vaccine. He kind of talks this mumbo-jumbo of, yoga and Middle Eastern philosophy.
I suppose if you're in a position of some success, people will let you be a nutter as long as they're making money out of it.
It's going to be a hard one today, guys. All right, let's get into it. Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Trauma Pond HQ. My name's Olivia and this is where we sit by the pond and we have a little chat. And today we're going to talk about something it is exceptionally triggering for me. There is a possibility that I'm going to get emotional about this, but it's about the Russell Brand accusations. Now, as a person who has experienced this particular crime many, many times, I am going to be very upfront, honest about the experiences that I have had. It is not comfortable, I'll say that, but I feel like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place for the Russell Brand accusations, and that is because it is very strategic timing that this has just all come about, and the timing of this does make me question the validity of it. Every other accusation that has ever been made, like Kevin Spacey, Jimmy Savile, Woody Allen, like all of those ones, Harvey Weinstein, there was no question in my head about those particular people. Even Bill Cosby was like, yeah, I get that. I can see that very, very well. This one is not really making sense, although it is also making sense. And the reason why is because Russell has spoken out many times about his addiction towards sex. Like he's even been in rehab for this. Now, when we talk about the idea of someone having an addiction, a lot of addictions are solely towards the person as an individual themselves. So certain drug uses, it's when that person is taking it. When it comes to sex addiction, again, that is something that can only affect the person as they are, because it can mean that they are just using porn as an addiction. It can mean that they're going out and paying for it. But then there's other ways that you are actually inflicting pain on the person that you are using, regardless if you are paying for it or if they are wanting to participate but not. And this is why this is a very sticky situation. I've listened to these testimonies. Now, I'm not saying that, these testimonies are not real. I 100% believe that there are accusations to this that do have validity. In saying that, there are other stories that I've listened to that don't. And that's where I have a massive problem with all of this. The reason why is because when I listen to some of them, I'm like, I don't know if the edit has made it sound like this or if it is because it didn't happen. I've looked through this. I have scoured as much as I possibly can from all edges of the internet to try and find where is the truth in this. And in all honesty, I think there's two truths. I reckon we just need to look at a few things and break it down. I am not shaming the victims. I do believe that these victims need to have a voice. I also do believe that a past like Russell's needs to be understood. I really am not doing a very good job here. It doesn't sound like I'm not defending Russell. I'm not defending him at all, because the act of sex addiction, to what it extended to for him, not good at all. This one really does make me feel very uncomfortable, guys. I'm not gonna lie. So we're gonna have a little look at these accusations, some tapes, some testimonials, and we'll see what it is that has actually been going on.
and he happened to call me and say, I've had a really bad day, please come over. And at first I said, no, I'm not going, it's late. And he's like, please come, just come and cuddle with me. So then I gave in, and I'm like, okay. He pushed me up against the wall. I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, I have a friend here, and I want you to come into the bedroom. I'm like, no, that's not happening. We're not doing that. And I tried to get away from him. And at this point, he's grabbing at my underwear, pulling it to the side. I'm telling him to get off me, and he won't get off. And he has that glazed look in his eye again. I was very distraught, trying to get out of the house with him being so much taller than me, like holding me up against the wall, pushing himself in me. I couldn't move.
That's the one that I really have big problems with. As I said, I have had this experience many, many times, and I've been subjected to many different forms of this kind of assault. This one in particular, if she was fighting, I don't want to go into too many details as to why I think there's holes in it, because I don't want these guys to actually be able to change their story. I'm not buying it. I'm sorry. That is one I'm not buying. In my head, with what she has described, it doesn't make sense. You're going to have to fix that story up for me to believe it. Like I said, I'm not going to say why I have this opinion with this. I'm not doing that because I don't want to give the ammo as to why this doesn't make sense. But this one does not make sense.
In the past, Brand had joked that bosses had enabled his behaviour. Now there are serious questions for broadcasters on who knew what and when, as the BBC, Channel 4 and a Big Brother production company launched investigations. Today, his former agent reacted to the claims.
Are you surprised with the allegations?
Very surprised.
There's a couple of things that go with this scenario, and it seems as though Russell was being set up by the mainstream media. I know that sounds very far-fetched, but mainstream media is definitely guilty for an awful lot of these accusations that have been coming out. It is bizarre that Jimmy Savile was able to do this for such a long time with children, and nothing was ever said. And this is a man that was given a knighthood. There are so many other people that have been associated with BBC and Channel 4 that the second that they do anything that goes against the entire industry or of what has been built up for them, this is what ends up happening. And I swear that anyone that goes in with these industries is being set up for this to happen to them. It didn't take a genius to work out that Russell definitely did have a very bad relationship, not just with sex and himself, but drugs as well. So there was an awful lot of things within the industry that were set up for Russell to just be surrounded by his addiction.
You went through a crazy time in Hollywood.
Oh my God, yeah.
It was mad, wasn't it? But they sort
Keeps
of
happening.
I know, but they sort of allow you to behave in a certain way, don't they? I mean,
yes.
You are allowed. You're enabled to
Enabled
behave.
is a good word,
Yeah.
yes.
If you put someone with a drug addiction into a room full of drugs, are you honestly saying that they are not going to be able to stop themselves from using? I don't like calling him a predator because we don't know the full stories. However, Russell's peers have been saying a few things about him, about how he has got predatory behaviour. Catherine Ryan, at the point of me filming this, still has not said anything. All that's coming up are the old videos of her with Louis Theroux.
When we say predator, what do you mean?
I think I mean perpetrator of sexual assault. But it is very dangerous for us to have this conversation. Well, I'm happy to have it.
Why?
But it is a litigious minefield because lots of people have tried to nail this person down for their alleged crimes. And this person has very good lawyers.
I can actually understand that happening and him being angry and upset about those kind of allegations. I'll be honest, I have said to a person as well, you act like a predator. And the response to that was just to laugh it off. I'm like, no, if you are constantly going up to women solely just to sleep with them, you're acting like a predator. And you are choosing vulnerable women so that you can get what you want. if that is the case with Russell, he had fame, fortune, power. Women are attracted to that. So are men. Men are attracted to that as well. For Russell, this idea of him being able to go and just be able to pick up as many women as possible is the equivalent of a drug addict going into a drug-filled room and trying not to use.
Other junior Endemol crew members who worked with Brand on other shows agreed to tell their stories too.
Russell was pointing out women that he found attractive in the audience and then getting the runners to get their details so that they could meet up after the show. It felt like we were essentially taking lambs into slaughter.
Here's another part of this. With the runners going up to the women at the end of shows, getting details or exchanging details or whatever it is, the women at the shows that were offered this opportunity to meet Russell and then potentially sleep with him, they had a lot of power to say no. It was their choice as to whether or not they chose to go, regardless as to whether or not they knew of his behaviour. They actually had the upper hand to not do this. If they are of a certain age, that's not okay. And you are pretty vulnerable before the age of 21. So you don't have the comprehension to say yes or no at that point. And yes, it does actually put you in a vulnerable position if you end up being under those ages.
As one of his accusers, known only as Alice, took to the airwaves to claim at 16 she was collected from school to see Brand.
You believe a BBC car picked you up from school to take you somewhere to meet him?
It was back to his house. Because I'd used one of their cars previously, that he told me just to tell the driver where to take me.
Do you know, this whole thing with the car being sent to go and pick up someone and take them to a perpetrator's house, that's not the first time I've talked about this on this podcast. The same thing happened with Philip Schofield. And I'm pretty sure that it's happened a couple of times before with other people. So my thing is, why are these media companies paying for transportation like this? This does not make any sense at all. I swear everybody is being set up for this. The guilty party here is not just Russell. I'm like I said, I'm not defending him, but I do believe that his sex addiction was just driven forward by the media company itself as well. I'm not seeing innocent play with the BBC, with Channel 4, with ITV. It doesn't matter who it is. All I'm actually really wanting is if this is who Catherine Ryan was talking about, because at this point in time, she hasn't said a thing. And unless I actually see a video, because she was absolutely fine and happy to have this discussion many times on other shows and not name that person, then why is she not saying anything now? She should be the very first person that is going to say something about this, but she's not. The other accusations that are coming through, I kind of understand it. And there's going to be plenty more. There's going to be some that will jump on the bandwagon. There's going to be some that are just going to do it because. And then you have the other ones that are saying things like this.
I was contacted in June by a journalist regarding a video I made about a certain celebrity and a weekend that we shared together. The video is kind of viral. It's on my page somewhere if you want to go see it. And that certain somebody was, as most of you will be aware, Mr. Brand. They weren't going to use my story because it didn't fit the narrative for their documentary, because he wasn't an arsehole to me. But here are some of the messages. Obviously, I will take out the person's name and stuff. We had a phone call. She contacted me for more information and I didn't contact her back because I kind of felt like it would be mean. Anyway, there you go. Put your bets on. It's a documentary about the one and only Mr. Russell Brand.
All right, so I'm just going to read what we can, because obviously whoever has posted this has put this over it. And what it actually says: I hope you're doing okay. I'm getting in contact with you. My name is, and that's been scribbled out. I'm a journalist at the Times newspaper. We're currently working on a project in collaboration with Channel 4. Okay. And this was when she said it was back in January. Russell started speaking out about things 3 years ago with Big Pharma. Just saying. Having seen your post on TikTok from a few months ago and wondering if it was something that you might be able to help us with. It's fairly sensitive, so if you have had a few minutes, it would be great to have a quick chat on the phone to explain this in more detail. This would be strictly for research purposes only, nothing at all for our publication. Please let me know if this would work. Okay. From the understanding of everything that has gone on, these victims did not go to the media. The media came to them. there is something going on that is not quite right about this entire story. When I'm looking at this and I'm seeing all of these storylines, something's not sitting right with me. And as a person who has suffered this sort of crime, to try and trigger the people that have actually experienced violent crimes, especially like my virginity was stolen. I never gave mine away. It was stolen. So if that's true, and they are using a 16-year-old, which I was 16 from my first sexual assault, this is the media really looking to hone in hard on people who have been victims of this sort of assault. And it is not fair. For the amount of press that this is getting, this feels bigger than the Harvey Weinstein case. And that's a guy we know was the sickest man in Hollywood, or one of. There's a lot of things going on here that, Catherine Ryan hasn't said anything, and you'd think she would have been one of the first people to say something. There is something, though. Daniel Sloan.
Russell Brand, but he's not a comic. Or a peer.
Do you know him at all?
I know heaps about him that are unrepeatable.
Oh boy.
But not a good man.
I remember when Daniel Sloan first started out, a couple of my friends were in the industry and we were all going to those free nights where people were doing open mic nights and things like that so that they can get their material out, test it, all of that sort of stuff. Daniel Sloan was there. Now, to say that Daniel is a completely innocent person in everything, let's just say he's not exactly the nicest person that I've ever met.
I don't feel like I'm bad-mouthing somebody that went through the trenches like we did. He was somebody that skipped a bunch of fucking levels, became a fucking TV presenter and went, I'll just be weird. He stole somebody else's act in the UK.
Oh, you hate to hear that.
He was quite aggressive towards a couple of people. I don't know if it was because he was having a really bad night that night, but he wasn't a very nice person. I've seen him once. It wasn't a good impression. To say that he is bitter towards Russell Brand would be an understatement.
Wow. Great chest hair. Yeah,
Great
for getting Sarah Marshall.
And it's easier to come to terms with because he was never, ever, ever good at stand-up at any point in his fucking career.
Russell was able to get to Hollywood. An awful lot of them weren't. And yes, I would say that he is a little bit bitter about that. In saying that, who else wouldn't be? This is such a tricky topic, guys. And at the end of all of this, I don't doubt that Russell has actually acted on his urges very badly. I think he has. To say that Russell is completely innocent in this, I'm not going to say that he is, but I also think that he is also a victim of circumstance. Now, that is going to be very, very hard for a lot of people to understand, but things were pushed towards him, and he did not have the control of himself to stop himself around something that he was addicted to. Like I said, that doesn't give him any excuse. And I feel so sorry for the people who were subjected to his addiction. But I do believe that there is a potential that there are over-exaggerated claims here.
To become a voice of alt-right podcasts, it was online that Brand chose to strenuously deny the claims ahead of Saturday's dispatches.
Amidst this litany of astonishing, rather baroque attacks are some very serious allegations that I absolutely refute. Is there another agenda at play? Particularly when we've seen coordinated media attacks before.
There's so much wrong with this particular topic. And there are people saying, well, why didn't people go to the police? You can't go to the police. This is a very mild case in comparison to one Ian Watkins. For those of you who don't know anything about the story of Ian Watkins was a lead singer of Lost Prophet who sexually assaulted hundreds of children, babies. And one woman in particular went to the police about this multiple times and nothing was done. Why was nothing done? I don't think we'll ever understand why nothing was done, especially in regards to children. And the Ian Watkins case is an example as to why people cannot go to the police. People couldn't go to the police about Harvey Weinstein. Anyone who did either disappeared or was completely ridiculed. Same with Kevin Spacey. A lot of his victims have miraculously disappeared or passed away. When you have a certain level of power, dependent on where you are in the system, you can get away with anything. That is actually something that is quite terrifying of what I'm studying right now within psychology. I've chosen an elective of criminology. And it was quite interesting when I questioned the lecturer. Now, this did not go into the lecture. We just decided to have a discussion at the end of class. But he did point out that the reason why the police were created was so that the elites didn't have to deal with problems. And of course, the police can only go so far with certain things. What is the most disturbing thing of everything is that there is a cut-off of where crime is deemed acceptable. And it means pretty much anyone with a certain title or position of power does not have to pay for crimes. We all know this. If you really looked into every single politician, you would see just how corrupt it actually is. It's so interesting that the whole Russell Brand documentary is actually called In Plain Sight. The irony of those words being used is extraordinary because this is in every single industry. Every single one. There is not one industry that doesn't have top-end elites abusing their power on people. And we're not just talking men versus women here. We're talking elites versus children as well. It's worse whenever children are the most vulnerable part of all of these situations. And you want to talk about plain sight? Every single person is going to be fixated on the victims and Russell. Nobody is going to be paying attention to anything else that is actually happening right now, including people like The Rock and Oprah, who have been hiding in plain sight for decades, and no one is paying any attention to the things that they are doing. The media will only ever fixate on certain things. It's never going to fixate on the actual problem issues. Russell, you were good enough to acknowledge and get help and try and fix everything that you had done, but you were a slave to your addiction. Unfortunately, now the time of retribution has come for you. And I am sad that it got to the point that it has gotten to. Unfortunately, this particular addiction involves people directly. You use people directly with this type of addiction. This is one other thing that really drives me crazy about these particular whatever shows and fresh and fit shows is that these men are trying to say that it's absolutely fine to sleep with as many women as you want. Well, Russell did it and look at what's happened. And in all honesty, I truly hope those guys get it pretty damn hard because I guarantee those kind of guys are definitely doing worse than anything that Russell is being accused of. Ooh, I call a spade a spade. Look, I hope that all of the victims are okay. I do hope that Russell really did have his retribution moment. I want to be wrong. I truly want to be wrong about everything that I say. I don't like being right about anything. Like I said, I don't believe Russell is 100% innocent. I can see how Russell thinks that he's innocent, but I can also see that there are discrepancies. I do hope that Catherine Ryan does actually speak out properly and give full accounts to what she has been saying for the last couple of years. I really do truly hope that she does, because you cannot build up and say that these are the things that have been happening and then go quiet whenever the truth comes out about someone. That's not fair. I understand that there's a potential that most likely she has been asked to stay quiet about this situation. I get that, but let's not have people guessing, because if you're wrong, you're hurting someone. All right, guys, I really hope that you enjoyed this episode. Sorry that it is such a darkener one. Let's really get down to the idea of exercising critical thought and understanding why are the media all of a sudden attacking him right after he has decided to attack them for years.
I suppose if you're in a position of some success, people will let you be a nutter as long as they're making money out of it.
Yes.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Trauma Pond HQ. If you have liked this episode, please please subscribe, please leave a comment, say whatever you want. It's not going to affect me. I'm already traumatized. All right, guys, have a wonderful week, and I will see you next time for another episode of Trauma Pond HQ. Mwah.